A few years ago, I spent a few days visiting friends in Austin, Texas. I live in Louisiana, so it's a full day's drive to get there. On my last day in Austin, an old friend of mine, Tom, commented on my Instagram story asking when I was heading out. I told him I was leaving that day. He mentioned he lived about an hour outside of Austin, which happened to be right on my route home. We hadn't seen each other in years, and it sounded like a good idea to catch up. He invited me to stop by, and I figured, why not? I set my GPS to his address. It was about an hour and a half away. Tom and I had been close back in high school, but drifted apart after graduation. We still followed each other online, but we hadn't actually spoken in forever. When I pulled up to his place, I immediately noticed the house had an old-fashioned feel. Not run down, just aged. The wooden porch creaked under my feet. When he opened the door, the smell of old wood and something rustic hit me, like stepping into a forgotten cabin deep in the woods. Tom was as welcoming as ever. He pulled me into a big hug and led me inside. Some friendships really do pick up right where they left off. No matter how much time passes, inside, the house was just as aged as the outside. The furniture looked like it had been sitting there since the 70s. Every step on the hardwood floors made a soft, tired groan. It was incredibly Texan, charming in its own way, like stepping back in time. We settled into his living room, poured ourselves some whiskey, and spent hours catching up. One drink turned into two into three, and before I knew it, I was buzzed, heavily. The warmth of the alcohol made the room feel smaller, closer, almost pressing in. Time blurred. At some point, Tom said what I had been expecting. "Hey man, it's a long drive back. Why don't you just crash here tonight?" I hesitated, but he was right. I wasn't in any shape to drive. I asked if I could just crash on the couch. Tom shook his head. "Nah man, I've got a guest room. It's not fancy, but it's better than the couch." That was good enough for me. We ordered some Chinese food, ate, and after a while, Tom showed me down a short hallway to the guest room. I was so drunk and exhausted by that point, I barely noticed my surroundings. The air in the room felt stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in a long time. I barely made it to the bed before passing out completely. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I woke up. My throat was dry, my head spinning. The room was dark, but a little moonlight filtered in through the blinds. That's when I saw it. In the far corner of the room, on the closet door, something was hanging. At first, I thought it was just a long black coat on a hanger, but as my eyes adjusted, the shape seemed wrong. The top was broad, almost like shoulders, and the way it hung didn't look natural. It looked more like a figure than clothing. My heart pounded. I didn't remember seeing anything hanging there when I stumbled into the room earlier. But I was drunk, so maybe I just missed it. I rolled over, trying to ignore it. "It's just a coat," I told myself. Nothing more. Still, I couldn't resist another glance. It was still there. I squeezed my eyes shut, took a deep breath, and forced myself to sleep. I don't know how long I was out before something else woke me. This time, it wasn't discomfort. It was a sound. A slow, deliberate creak, like footsteps on an old wooden floor. I snapped my eyes open. The room was a little brighter now, with the early light of dawn creeping in. I turned my head toward the closet and froze. The coat was gone. Panic surged through me. I sat up too fast, making my head spin. Adrenaline mixed with leftover alcohol as my heart raced. I scanned the room. Nothing. The closet door hung open, empty. Without thinking, I threw off the covers and rushed to Tom's room. He was sound asleep, oblivious. I shook him awake, rambling. "Dude, the coat, the thing in the guest room, it's gone." Tom blinked at me, still half asleep. "What coat?" he asked. "The black trench coat, hanging on the closet door. It looked like a person." He sat up, rubbing his face, more awake now. "Man, I don't own a trench coat, and there's no coat rack in that room." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. But he wasn't joking. His face was dead serious. "Come look," I insisted. Sighing, he got up and followed me back to the guest room. I pointed to the corner. It was right there. Tom looked around, then scratched his head. He gently suggested maybe I had dreamt it, that maybe the alcohol had mixed with sleep and my mind played tricks on me. I didn't want to believe it. We checked the whole house just to be sure. Every room, every closet, nothing. No sign of anything out of place. No strange coats. No forced entry. Eventually, Tom convinced me it must have been some kind of sleep paralysis or vivid dream. I tried to believe him. I really, really tried. As soon as the sun was fully up, I grabbed my stuff, thanked him, and hit the road back to Louisiana. But the entire drive, I couldn't shake the memory of waking up, seeing that dark figure in the corner, and waking up again to find it gone. Maybe Tom was pulling a cruel prank, but if he was, he's never admitted it. Or maybe, just maybe, someone was actually standing there in the dark, watching me sleep, and decided to leave before the sun came up. I was 18 when this happened. My parents and I, along with my friend, let's call her Anna, were on a road trip through Sweden. The plan was simple: drive 8 hours to a popular amusement park, spend the night camping, and visit the park the next day. Only, we hadn't booked a campsite. When we rolled into the town near the park, we figured we could just find a spot easily. But that night, a huge soccer tournament was happening, and every single campsite was packed full. My dad frantically called around, but anything available was either ridiculously far away or insanely expensive. In the end, we had no choice. We decided to find a spot in the wild and camp there. We set the GPS for a public parking area inside a nature reserve, not because it was ideal, but at least we wouldn't get a ticket for illegal parking. When we pulled into the gravel lot, there were still a few people wrapping up their hikes. We asked one woman if camping overnight was okay, and she reassured us, no rangers here, and it was perfectly safe. Good enough for us. We debated for a moment whether we should haul our tents down to the beach nearby. It was about a 10-minute walk through the woods, but something about staying closer to the car felt safer, so we decided to set up right there at the parking area. As we were unloading the gear, I noticed an old, battered car sitting at the far end of the lot. It was empty, and something about it unsettled me. It was late by then, and the place was dead quiet, but I pushed the feeling aside. Anna and I worked together setting up the tents, one for us, one for my parents. We placed them side by side for safety. It was a battle wrangling the poles and covers, but we finally managed to get everything up. Anna and I made our little nest inside, blankets, snacks, and YouTube videos playing softly on my phone. The clock hit 11 p.m. We laughed, talked, scrolled TikTok, slowly winding down. Sometime around midnight, we decided it was finally time to sleep. My parents were already deep into their slumber. Anna and I lay there quietly, each scrolling through our phones, when a sudden sound made us freeze. Clang, metal against gravel, like someone had dropped a heavy shovel nearby. We stared at each other, wide-eyed. Neither of us wanted to unzip the tent to look outside, so we stayed completely still, ears straining. The noise had come from the direction of that abandoned car. Then we heard another noise, something heavy being shoved into a car trunk, followed by a loud, hollow slam. I felt my heart pounding painfully in my chest. We sat there in silence, barely breathing. A few minutes later, the old car's engine started up, loud, rough, and it sped off into the night. I quickly grabbed my phone and texted a friend who lived not too far from there. He replied almost instantly, "That beach nearby? It's bad news, man. Gangs use that area sometimes. Be careful." I felt my stomach twist. We sat there, listening to the night. 10 long minutes passed. We were finally starting to relax a little when a scream, the loudest, most blood-curdling male scream I have ever heard. It echoed through the forest, raw and horrifying. Anna and I both jumped. I immediately messaged my mom. No answer. So I called her. After a few rings, she picked up, groggy. She said she and Dad hadn't heard anything, and that it was probably nothing. She tried to reassure me, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Anna and I huddled together under the blankets, terrified. Time dragged. Minutes felt like hours. Then, out of the darkness, we heard footsteps, slow, crunching over the gravel, getting closer, closer, right outside our tent. I turned off my phone screen, terrified that the light would give us away. The footsteps circled our tent. Then they moved toward my parents' tent, then around the car. Whoever it was, they paused by each tent, standing there, listening, watching. The footsteps eventually faded. We barely dared to breathe. And then, headlights. That same battered car was back. It rolled slowly through the parking lot, sweeping its headlights over our little campsite. Anna and I instinctively flattened ourselves against the ground. I risked a tiny glance through the tent's mesh window. I saw a man slam the car door shut. Then the vehicle roared off into the night. For a brief moment, I felt a sliver of relief. From my angle, I could see the road winding away from the lot. About 5 minutes later, another vehicle appeared, this time a police car. It sped down the same road, chasing after whoever had just left. The lot grew quiet again. We were still too terrified to sleep. Anna and I made a quick decision. We abandoned the tent and climbed into the car, locking the doors. It felt safer, somehow. I stayed awake for hours, eyes scanning the woods for any sign of movement. Anna eventually dozed off in the passenger seat. As the sky started to lighten, we crawled back into the tent, finally collapsing from exhaustion. We woke up around 9, still shaken. I immediately told my mom everything. She listened carefully, and then, almost casually, she admitted something. She had heard footsteps too. Not only footsteps, but breathing. Heavy, raspy breathing right outside their tent. She had stayed silent to keep from scaring us more. Dad, of course, had slept through the whole thing. We packed up faster than I thought possible and got out of there without even eating breakfast. We still managed to have fun at the amusement park later that day, but the whole experience clung to me like a shadow. That night, back home, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the area online, and what I found chilled me to the bone. A man had been stabbed to death near that very beach just a few weeks before, apparently tied to gang debts. Worse, 2 other men had gone missing from that same area in the last year and were never found. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The shovel sounds, the scream, the footsteps, the breathing. What if we hadn't stayed quiet? What if we had gone out to investigate? Would we have been next? I'll never know for sure. But that night changed the way I feel about camping forever. This is one memory from my childhood that still haunts me whenever I think about it. I was 6 years old, the age when your first vivid memories start to form. I have one sibling, my older brother, Keith. He was 2 years older than me, making him around 8 at the time. Growing up, we lived under strict rules, especially about bedtime. Our lights had to be out by 8:30 p.m., sharp. If Dad caught us awake after that, there were consequences. He ran a tight ship. I don't remember if it was a school night or not, but sometime deep into the night, I woke up. Keith was gently shaking me. At first, I was confused. Why was he waking me up? He pressed a finger to his lips, signaling for silence, and whispered, "Listen." So I did. At first, there was only the sound of the house settling. Then I heard it, a voice, a soft whisper, coming from downstairs. It was calling our names. But the way it sounded, it was wrong. It was our mother's voice, or at least it sounded like hers. But it was faint, almost too quiet, like she was deliberately whispering through gritted teeth. Instinctively, I started to sit up, ready to go down and see what she wanted. Keith grabbed my wrist. "No," he said urgently. "That's not Mom." I frowned at him, annoyed, thinking he was just trying to scare me. "Come to the door," he whispered. "Listen closer." Still half asleep and grumpy, I shuffled across the room toward the door. Our bedroom was upstairs. The hallway outside led to another guest room and the upstairs bathroom. Immediately to the right of our door was a staircase leading down to the main floor, and that stairway had its own separate door. I pressed my ear against the door leading to the stairs. The voice became clearer, whispering, calling, "Keith, Mikey." I turned back to Keith. "It's Mom," I whispered. He shook his head fiercely. "No, it's not," he repeated, voice barely audible. Despite myself, a small knot of fear began forming in my stomach. Still, I reached for the doorknob. I quietly unlocked the door to the staircase and cracked it open, just wide enough to peek through. And what I saw made every hair on my body stand up. At the bottom of the staircase stood a woman. Her shape resembled our mom, same height, same posture. But even as a little kid, I could feel something was horribly wrong. She didn't move. She just stared up at me and smiled. A slow, unsettling smile. And then she whispered, "Come down, sweetheart. Come to me." I slammed the door shut as hard as I could and locked it again. I stumbled back into the room, tears already streaming down my face. Keith grabbed my shoulders. "Told you," he said. We clung to each other for a second before Keith came up with an idea. "We'll scream," he said, "loud as we can. Wake them up." We counted down together. 3, 2, 1. And we screamed, shouting and stomping our feet against the floorboards. It took only moments before we heard footsteps pounding up the stairs and someone banging on our locked door. At first, Dad was furious. He hated locked doors in the house. But when he finally got inside and saw us, me crying, Keith pale and shaking, his anger melted instantly. We told them everything. The voice, the figure on the stairs, the whisper calling our names. Mom's face went white. She asked what the woman had looked like. We both said the same thing. She kind of looked like her, but it wasn't her. Dad grabbed a flashlight and immediately went downstairs to check the house. Mom stayed with us, calming us down, tucking us back under the covers. Before she left, she leaned close and said something she had never told us before. "Keep the door locked tonight." At that age, I didn't understand why her voice trembled slightly. But looking back as an adult, I realized she was scared. Keith and I, too restless to sleep, peered out through the window of our bedroom. That's when we saw it. Flashing red and blue lights. A police car had pulled up to our house. We heard the doorbell. We saw the outline of officers speaking to our parents at the front door. We begged to go downstairs to find out what was happening, but our parents refused. They told us to stay put. Later, no matter how many times we asked, they never explained. All they said was, it was just a stranger, some random intruder. But I never believed them. Because there was something they couldn't explain. How did that woman know our names? Years later, when I was older, I tried asking again. We were sitting around the dinner table, and I brought it up casually. Dad gave me the same answer, just some random crazy person. But Mom stayed silent, eyes glued to her plate. I truly believe they knew more than they let on. Maybe they thought they were protecting us. Maybe they didn't want us carrying that fear into adulthood. But I still wonder, who or what was standing at the bottom of our stairs that night? And what would have happened if I had gone down to find out?